My gardener shows me his big tool when he sees me. I thought it would be just another boring weekend at home. My parents were out of town, the house was quiet, and I had the whole place to myself. That's when he showed up. Lucas, the gardener. Tall, tanned, with rough hands and a body built by the sun. I'd seen him around before, trimming hedges, mowing the lawn, but I never thought he even noticed me. Until today. He was working out back when I stepped outside, and the way he looked at me this time was different. Intense. Bold. Then he picked up his tool, huge, heavy, and said something that made my skin burn. I thought he was just teasing. But what happened next made it clear. He wasn't. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next. This story? It's hotter than the summer sun. It was one of those late summer afternoons where everything feels slow. The air was thick, the sun blazing down on the grass, and I had nothing to do but lie around the house in shorts and scroll through my phone. My parents were out of town for the weekend, some kind of anniversary trip, and I had the place to myself. Normally that meant freedom, but today I was restless. I wandered into the kitchen, poured myself some iced tea, and caught a glimpse of movement through the glass doors that led to the backyard. He was there, Lucas, the gardener. I didn't even know if gardener was the right word. He did everything. Lawn care, hedges, flowers, power washing. But honestly, no one cared what he did because no one could ignore how he did it. The guy looked like he belonged in a magazine. Broad shoulders, dark tan, sun-bleached hair under a backwards cap. I'd seen him dozens of times before, and every time he showed up, I tried not to watch him. But I always did. Today, though, something was different. He was wearing a tank top. Not unusual, but the way it clung to his chest, the way sweat made the fabric stick just enough to show every cut line of muscle beneath. It wasn't helping me stay subtle. He pushed the mower across the lawn like it weighed nothing, and for a second, I stood there just watching him like some cliché. He looked up, caught me, and then he smirked. My stomach dropped. I stepped back from the window quickly, heart pounding. Maybe he hadn't really seen me. Maybe that wasn't a smirk. Maybe I was reading too much into it. I sat at the kitchen island, trying to act normal, trying to convince myself I wasn't the one acting weird. But then, I heard the sliding door open. I turned around. Lucas was standing in the doorway, holding one of his tools in his hand, a long hedge trimmer, and wiping sweat from his forehead with the back of his arm. "Didn't mean to scare you," he said, voice low and rough. "Didn't know anyone was home." I swallowed. Yeah, just me." He nodded, then stepped inside like he belonged there, like he'd done it 100 times. Maybe he had. But not when I was alone. Not like this. "I was gonna ask if I could use the hose out back," he added. "Get some of this dirt off me." I blinked. "Yeah, of course. It's right by the shed." He smiled again, this time slower. "Cool. You want to show me?" I froze for a second. Then I stood. He followed me out the door, and the second we stepped into the backyard, the heat felt twice as thick. Or maybe it was just him behind me, walking a little too close, his presence electric. When I reached the hose, I turned the knob, and water burst from the nozzle. He reached for it, his hand brushing mine, and took it from me. "Thanks," he said, eyes locking with mine for just a moment. He turned the hose on himself. No hesitation, just lifted the nozzle and let the cold water hit his chest. His shirt clung tighter, becoming almost see-through. I tried not to look. God, I tried. But it was useless. "You good?" he asked, noticing my silence. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, just hot out." "Yeah," he said, stepping closer. "It's been getting hotter every time I come here." My breath caught. He looked at me, really looked, then down at his hand still gripping the hose. Then he lifted the tool he'd been carrying, held it up between us. "Bet you thought I was talking about this, huh?" he teased, raising an eyebrow. I felt the heat crawl up my neck. "Weren't you?" He grinned. "I don't know. Depends what you were hoping for." I didn't say anything, but I didn't look away either. And that was when he took a step closer. Just one. But it was enough to feel the tension between us thicken like the heat. "You want me to keep going?" he asked, voice low. My mouth was dry, my pulse loud in my ears, and all I could say was, "Yes." The air between us felt charged, like the sky before a summer storm. Lucas stood there with the hose still in his hand, the nozzle dripping, his tank top soaked and clinging to his chest like it had been painted on. I hadn't meant to say yes out loud, but once the word left my mouth, I couldn't take it back. And I didn't want to. He didn't react right away. Just let the silence stretch between us, a half smile playing on his lips, his eyes watching me a little too closely. Not with confusion, with clarity. Like he'd already known for a long time that this moment was coming. He'd just been waiting for me to be ready. I could feel my heartbeat in places I didn't know it could echo. My hands were restless, fingers twitching at my sides, not knowing whether to run or reach for him. He shifted his weight slightly, the muscles in his arms flexing as he adjusted the hose. "So, you like the view?" he said, voice casual, teasing, but lower now. There was something underneath it, something bold and unreadable. I felt a dry laugh catch in my throat. "Is that what this is now? Show and tell?" He raised an eyebrow. "Only if you're showing too." I stared at him, unsure if he was joking, testing me, or just being exactly who I always suspected he might be when no one else was watching. I wanted to say something clever, something smooth, but all I could think about was the way his shirt stuck to the curve of his back, the sharp line of his jaw, the way his eyes had locked onto me like they weren't planning to look away anytime soon. He dropped the hose to the grass, let it slither away like it was the last thing on his mind, and took a step forward, then another. Now he was close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off his skin, mixing with the humid air, thick and heavy and intimate. His hand lifted, hovering for a moment like he was giving me the chance to stop him. When I didn't move, he brushed the backs of his fingers down my arm, slow and deliberate. "You've been watching me for a while now," he said. "You think I didn't notice?" I looked up at him, my throat dry. "I didn't think you cared." His smile widened, but there was something soft in it now. "Oh, I cared." The admission made my stomach flip. He leaned in slightly, his voice a notch lower. "So what now?" I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I moved. I closed the gap between us and kissed him. It was clumsy at first, fueled more by heat and impulse than finesse. But the second our lips touched, he responded. His hand found my waist, pulling me closer, grounding me. His other hand curled around the back of my neck, fingers threading through my hair. He kissed me like he'd been thinking about it too, like he'd imagined it once or twice while mowing the lawn or rinsing off at the side of the house when he thought I wasn't looking. He kissed me like he wasn't in any rush, like this was exactly where he wanted to be. And for once, I stopped thinking. I just felt. The sound of water still running in the background, the wet grass beneath our feet, the weight of his hands on me. It all blended into something dizzying and surreal. When we finally pulled apart, both of us breathless, he looked at me with a grin that felt far more intimate than the kiss had been. "Well," he said, still holding me. That's one way to say thank you for trimming the hedges. I laughed, really laughed this time, the tension finally cracking. You're such an ass, he winked. You didn't seem to mind. I shook my head, still catching my breath. I don't. He leaned his forehead against mine, and for a moment we just stood there in the middle of the yard, under the fading sun, like the rest of the world had faded out. Then, from behind us, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway shattered everything. Lucas stiffened. I turned, and my heart dropped. My parents were home. I didn't move at first. Neither did he. We stood there, still inches apart, the water from the forgotten hose running along the grass like a secret we couldn't contain. The sound of car doors slamming made everything real again. The weight of it hit me all at once. What they'd see if they turned the corner, what they'd think if they saw him standing this close to me, both of us soaked, breathless, lips still tingling from the kiss we hadn't even finished processing. Lucas took a step back, fast. I followed his eyes to the sliding door of the house, still open, still vulnerable. Footsteps echoed through the driveway, voices trailing behind. My mom's laugh, my dad talking about the road. They were home early. Of course they were. Inside, I hissed. Lucas nodded and darted back toward the garden path, scooping up the hose on his way, doing his best to look like a guy who'd just finished his job and not like a guy who had just kissed their client's son. I bolted into the kitchen, pulled the sliding door shut, and wiped my face with the sleeve of my shirt, hoping I didn't look as flustered as I felt. By the time my parents walked in, bags in hand, I was standing at the counter, pretending to scroll through my phone like nothing had happened. My heart was beating against my ribcage so hard I could barely hear them say hello. Hey, kid, my dad said, dropping his keys in the bowl by the door. You survived the weekend? Yeah, I said quickly, keeping my voice light. Super chill, nothing crazy. Mom walked over and gave me a quick hug. We saw Lucas on the way in. You know, that guy works harder than anyone I've ever hired. I tried not to choke. Yeah, he's great. Really sweet, too, she added, pulling out her water bottle. Polite. Doesn't talk much, but that's kind of nice. And did you see the way he edged the walkway? Perfect. I forced a smile. You should give him a raise. Mom laughed. You should start mowing the lawn and earn a raise. I nodded, saying nothing, still half expecting Lucas to walk through the door and ruin the illusion completely. But he didn't. Instead, I got a text 10 minutes later. Lucas. That was close. Me. Too close. Lucas. Did they see anything? Me. No. But I think my soul left my body for a second. Lucas. Same. I wanted to say more. I wanted to ask him what that kiss had meant. If it was a heat of the moment thing, or if this was something he'd been thinking about like I had. But the words felt heavy in my hands. So instead, I typed the one thing I couldn't stop thinking. Me. Do you regret it? He didn't answer right away. I stared at the screen, pulse in my ears. Then finally, Lucas. No. Do you? I didn't even hesitate. Me. Not for a second. My stomach twisted, but in a good way this time. That text was the first real sign that I wasn't alone in this, that maybe we were both in this messy, uncharted space together. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way his fingers had curled around my shirt, how easily we'd fit together when he pulled me close. I thought about his voice, the way it dropped when he teased me, like he knew exactly what he was doing. I also thought about the next time. Would there be a next time? Would we talk about it? Would it happen again? And most of all, would we let it happen again? My phone lit up one more time just past midnight. Lucas, I keep thinking about it too. About you. I stared at the message, my face hot in the dark. Me. Come back tomorrow. His reply came fast. Lucas, try and stop me. I didn't even set an alarm. I didn't need one. By the time the sun crept through my blinds the next morning, I was already awake, lying there in the silence, heart pounding, replaying every second of the day before, every glance, every word, every single inch between us that had disappeared in the heat of that kiss. And now, he was coming back. I kept checking my phone even though he hadn't set a time. I wanted to be cool, act like this wasn't turning my whole world upside down. But the second I heard the low hum of his truck pulling into the driveway, I nearly tripped over myself getting to the window. There he was. Lucas stepped out like nothing had happened. Same cap, same tank top, same effortless way of walking that made it impossible not to watch. But when he glanced up at my window and saw me standing there, he didn't look away. He smiled. Small, confident, like he knew exactly what he was doing to me. I went downstairs fast, told my mom I was going for a walk, and slipped out the side door before she could ask questions. I met him behind the shed, hidden from the house, the sky above already warm and cloudless. It smelled like grass and pine, and the faint scent of whatever cologne he always wore that drove me insane. He leaned against the fence, arms crossed, watching me with that same unreadable smirk. "Morning," he said. "Hi," I replied, breath already caught in my throat. "You look like you didn't sleep." I laughed nervously. I didn't. Me neither. We stood there for a second, the silence thick with everything we weren't saying. I wanted to ask him what this was, if yesterday had meant something, if he'd come back just because he was curious, or because he wanted more. He beat me to it. "I haven't stopped thinking about it," he said, voice quieter now. "That kiss." My stomach flipped. "Yeah?" "Yeah." He looked at me for a long second. "I wasn't just messing around. I wouldn't do that to you." I nodded slowly. "I didn't think you were. I hoped you weren't." Lucas took a step forward. "I wasn't." And then, before I could say anything else, he reached out and placed his hand on my waist, pulling me toward him like it was the most natural thing in the world. My body followed instinctively. There was no hesitation this time, no fear, just fire. When he kissed me again, it was deeper, slower, like he was tasting every second of it. His hands found my back, fingers splayed against my shirt, and mine curled into his shoulders, holding on. We didn't say anything. We didn't need to. Every breath, every movement between us was a conversation we didn't know how to have out loud yet. Then he pulled back slightly, lips brushing against my jaw as he whispered, "You've been driving me crazy for weeks. You know that?" I smiled against his skin. "Pretty sure it's mutual." He laughed softly, pressing his forehead to mine. "I don't know where this goes," he admitted, "but I want to find out. If you do too." I nodded without hesitation. "Yeah, I do." We stood there for a long time, tangled together behind the shed like a secret the world hadn't found yet. But the difference now was, I didn't want to keep it a secret forever. I didn't want to go back to pretending. Later that day, Lucas finished his work like always. My mom waved at him from the kitchen window. My dad didn't even notice, and no one had a clue that between cutting hedges and blowing leaves, he'd stopped time with a kiss that left me spinning. As he packed up his tools, he glanced back at me over his shoulder, that same smirk on his face. "I'll be back next week," he said casually. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, unable to stop smiling. "I'll be waiting." But as I watched his truck pull away, My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. "So you and the gardener, huh? That's cute." I froze. Someone knew. The message sent a chill down my spine. "So you and the gardener, huh? That's cute." No name, no emoji, just those words. I didn't know who had seen us or how long they'd been watching, but it didn't feel like a joke. It felt like a threat. I didn't reply. Instead, I texted Lucas. "Someone knows." He responded in seconds. "I don't care who. I care about you." That hit deep. And yet, I was still scared. What if someone told my parents? What if everything blew up before this even had a chance? Later that day, Lucas came by unexpectedly, said he forgot something. But the second we were alone, he touched my hand and looked me straight in the eye. "We've already crossed the line," he said. "So let them talk. You're worth it." And just like that, the fear began to fade. We didn't go back to hiding. The next weekend, Lucas knocked on the front door instead of sneaking around the back. My mom raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He smiled at her, then looked at me like I was the only person in the room. That afternoon, we walked through the garden side by side. No tension, no shame. Just two people figuring it out in their own way. He kissed me again under the big oak tree. And this time, I didn't flinch when someone saw, because I wasn't afraid anymore. Sometimes the most unexpected people show us exactly what we've been missing. A kiss in the sun, a look that says, "I see you," and a love that grows where no one was looking. If you've ever felt something real but were afraid to let it bloom, remember, the people who matter will always find a way to stay. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on notifications. And tell us in the comments, have you ever fallen for someone you were never supposed to? We'll see you in the next story.